Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. On this week's video, we're going to take a look at new Dolphins offensive lineman Sean Harlow. Harlow is listed on Pro Football Reference as being 6'4", 284 pounds. I think he looks a little heavier than that, and he weighed heavier at the NFL Combine at 301, and he was also listed heavier at Oregon State at 310. He was a fourth round pick of the Atlanta Falcons in the 2017 draft. And just kind of looking through his box score numbers, his first 4 years in Atlanta, he didn't play much at all. In fact, I think I only see one offensive snap, and he really wasn't even a participant in special teams for them. After his rookie contract, he went to the Arizona Cardinals in 2021, and he played a good bit in his first year there. He had 5 starts and also contributed some on special teams. His second year in Arizona, he had 3 starts. Really outside of that, didn't play too much. And then last year, he was originally part of the Dallas Cowboys. They had him on the practice squad, and then he was poached from there by the New York Giants. Looks like week 7 of last season. And he didn't have any starts last year, but he did play in some garbage time in a blowout loss versus the Giants. In terms of the games that I've watched from him, I watched those garbage snaps in 2023, and he was playing at left guard. I watched the first game of 2022 where he was starting at left guard against the Chiefs, and I believe at the end of that game he played a little bit of center. And then week 4 of 2022 he had 18 snaps. I believe those were all at left guard once again. And then in weeks 5 and 6 versus the Eagles and the Seahawks, he was starting at center for the Cardinals. Okay, looking at NFL.com here, looking at his draft profile. So I guess he was actually listed at 303, not 301, but that's still almost 20 pounds heavier than what he was or what he's listed on Pro Football Reference. And unless a guy is severely overweight, you typically don't see those numbers go down by 20 pounds. So I think that around 300 is probably the more likely weight that Harlow is playing at. When you look at his different numbers, his 40, his vert, broad, 3-cone, shuttle, bench, this looks very much like a offensive lineman that would have been in Greer's wheelhouse had he been drafting Sean Harlow. Every metric that he has falls right in the middle of guys that Chris Greer has drafted. The 2 numbers that were just slightly off are going to be his arm length at 32 inches. So those were a 1/4 inch shorter than Solomon Kinley, who had the shortest arms of offensive linemen drafted by Chris Greer. And the only other number that's outside of the range that Chris Greer has drafted would be the 3-cone drill here at 8.16 seconds. And that was 11 tenths of a second slower than Austin Jackson, who had the slowest 3-cone drill of offensive linemen that Chris Greer have drafted. But even the fastest 3-cone drill isn't significantly faster than that. It's all kind of close. But when you look at the rest of these numbers, they all fall very much into the mold of offensive linemen that Chris Greer has drafted. Another thing that follows the Chris Greer mold of drafting offensive linemen is that Sean Harlow was a offensive tackle in college. I believe that he played on both the left and the right side in college. And when you look at the versatility that he's shown in addition to that in the NFL, like I said, he started at left guard and at center during his NFL career. I'm not sure if he's got any reps at right guard, but you're pretty much looking at a guy that has 5 position versatility in terms of if you need somebody to step in in a pinch, it's not like he hasn't played tackle, guard, or center before. Now, as we get into the video review, there are definitely positions that I like better than others, but this is just giving us a start as we get into looking at Sean Harlow. All right, as we get into the film review for Harlow, we're going to see snaps at both center and left guard, and we're going to see good snaps and bad snaps. On this first play, what we're going to get is a guard tackle counter, and what they're going to be asking Sean Harlow to do is to block backside on this 3 technique or 4-eye defensive tackle. And what we're going to see here is that Harlow does a good job of showing some short area quickness, and all he has to do on this is to get across to this backside, get a little bit of movement, and as long as he's taking him vertical along that line, he's doing his job. So this was a good play. Here's another one, same type of play, guard tackle counter to the right. Harlow's going to the left and does a good job again, sealing that 4-eye defensive tackle. All right, so what we're getting on this one is going to be an outside zone to the left. And what that means is the running back is going to take a path to where the tight end would be. We're going to get a combination block between the left guard and Sean Harlow. And we're going to get some motion that's going to bring this player further into the box. And that combination block should climb to that second level defender. There's that motion, brings that defender further into the box. Off the snap, you can see that the guard is going to end up at that linebacker, but he's taking a step with his left. He's going to give a little bit of a gallop back into that defensive tackle before he climbs to the linebacker. And what you're really looking for Harlow to be able to do is to use that gallop and that shot from the guard to be able to get his hips around and seal that path to the outside. And as you can see, Harlow's not able to do that. That defensive tackle maintains that outside leverage, and the back does a good job of reading the block. So this isn't an awful job by Harlow, right? But it's also not up to the standard of what you'd like to see for this to be run properly. Here's another outside zone or stretch play. And what they're looking for everybody to do here is basically just seal the next defender. And Harlow is going to try to seal this defensive tackle or nose tackle right here. And what we're going to see on this rep is that his initial position is good, right? But now he needs to start to try to get some vertical movement or else seal that nose tackle and try to keep him basically on that hash mark. And what we're going to see is that tackle or nose is able to continue to press Harlow outside, and that prevents the running back from being able to find anything to turn up in combination with not being able to set the edge over here. So again, could be a lot worse, but it's part of the problem here that he's not able to get around and either seal or create movement with that nose tackle, and the nose tackle's essentially going where he wants to go. All right, looking at left guard reps here when he's with the Giants, right here, and this is going to be a pass block snap and not going to need a whole lot of analysis here. You can see that he is just completely off balance and gets tossed around by the defensive tackle on this rep. Again, a left guard rep here. We're going to see him do an okay job of picking up the stunt, but not doing a good job of setting the anchor to stop from being pushed into the quarterback here. And just to show that it's not all bad in pass pro, he's going to set to this 5 technique out there and does a pretty good job on that one. Kind of loses balance at the end, but he does a good job of feeling that inside, being patient on that 5 tech, and then just sealing him to the outside once he needed to. All right, so we're getting inside zone here. So we should be getting a double team here with them climbing up to this linebacker. And the running back is taking a path straight downhill and will basically be reading that block. But what you'll see here is that there's not much movement at all. Right? Harlow gets into that block. You can see the eyes looking at that linebacker, but there's just no movement being created there. And as an offensive line coach, when we've got 2 linemen blocking 1 defensive lineman, there has to be movement here. And as you can see, they just don't get that here. They're both way too high and ends up with the run getting stacked up. All right, so looking at some of his Cardinals left guard tape here, and what we're going to get is outside zone to the left. And what we're going to get a Harlow at left guard is we're going to see a combination block between Harlow and the center, and they're going to be looking to climb to that linebacker. So the goal here, and this is Chris Jones, so it's a tough assignment, but they either want to create movement with Chris Jones that way or that way. And what we're going to get is that Chris Jones is going to stand Harlow up, and you can see that he is changing that line of scrimmage and driving Harlow back into the backfield. And because of that, it prevents the center from ever making it off of that block into number 50. And I'm going to throw this one in here again, Harlow at left guard, not necessarily because of the block, but more so that you can see the way that he moves in space. You can see that he's probably a little more athletic than a Rob Jones, but he's not on the same level as a Liam Eichenberg or a Jack Driscoll, since those are all guys that we've done film on before. All right, again, we've got Harlow still at left guard for the Cardinals. We're going to get a combination block here, and they're going to be working to that linebacker. Running back is going to be running a inside zone. So what we'd really like to see happen here is they're cutting this off on the backside or getting vertical movement to prevent that linebacker from scraping over top. And as you can see, we don't get that at all. The center just not doing a good job of running off the ball and creating any kind of movement here. But when we look at Harlow, he's also, that's not doing anything at all. And then to make it worse, he gets off to that linebacker and goes early, and he can't lock up that linebacker. That linebacker is able to keep some distance there, and then he's able to shed that block and nearly make the tackle. Another pass play here, Harlow at the left guard again, and you can see again that he is off balance, is able to get beat by that quickness to the inside, given a free run at the quarterback, and Kyler Murray is able to evade the pressure. All right, we are getting a zone run again here, and that's going to be a inside zone to the right. So what we are looking at as far as blocking assignments is that we're getting a combination on the backside here between Harlow and the left tackle, and they are going to climb up to that linebacker. And the path for the running back is going to be right here. As you can see on that play, that defensive tackle slants all the way across Harlow, and they don't end up blocking the tackle or the linebacker. So this is not a good rep by Harlow, but the more that I watch the Cardinals, I feel like they're just not being coached very well with the zone schemes, because we're seeing a lot of this type of stuff. And what really should have happened here is that either Harlow should have been a little more aggressive he should have been more aggressive trying to get vertical movement on this defensive tackle climbing to the linebacker. But if this defensive tackle was still able to cross over his face, then what we should be getting as we get to about here would be that the running back, instead of continuing down here where, there's traffic heading towards him, he should be cutting it back off of Harlow's butt and then cutting off of the defensive tackle or the offensive tackle blocking the linebacker here. All right, I'm throwing this one in because of all the snaps that I saw with Harlow. This, I believe, was the only bad snap that I saw. You're probably looking at over 100 snaps that I watched for Harlow. And, one snap doesn't mean anything one way or the other, but he was fairly consistent outside of this one snap. All right, on this play, we got Harlow, and this is kind of where he started to take over as a starting center versus the Eagles, and then I think we'll have some versus the Seahawks in this as well. So on this play, we're getting what is called a dart concept, and that's essentially a power, but the tackle is going to loop around. So what Harlow is going to try to do is to seal that nose tackle away from that. He's going to get a little bit of help from the guard, and you can see that he's got good position here, and that defensive tackle is trying to fight back over, but Harlow does a good job here of, when that defensive tackle is trying to fight back over, you can look where his feet is, and you can see that we start to get some vertical movement there. And that's what you're asking for out of that, because as you can see, we get the pile pushed, and even though it's not a dominating block, getting that little bit of movement can change that from a no gain to a 5-yard gain. Here's a pass rush snap at center, and for whatever reason, he just seemed to be a different player at center. You can just see that he does a much better job of anchoring and not just getting blown back into the quarterback as a center compared to what he did as a guard. Now we're going to get a little inside zone action to the left. All right, so there's the path of the running back. We're going to get a combination block between the left guard and Harlow. They're working up to that linebacker. And what we'll get here is some decent movement on the double team. Looking at where that defensive tackle starts out, he's right on the hash there. And you can see that Harlow does a good job with that gallop. And they're able to move him a good 2-3 yards off of this spot. Now what you'd like to see out of Harlow is to not turn his shoulders quite so much. See how he's committing all the way to that double team, which doesn't allow him to slide off and get to that linebacker. It's pretty close though. It's not a bad job, right? We're creating that movement, and that's at least getting the running back 2-3 yards downfield before there's any contact. So not bad, but certainly room for improvement there. Okay, again, still at center here. And if you remember earlier, we looked at a play where Harlow was picking up a stunt and was just getting blown into the backfield. And here at center, not necessarily a stunt, but helping the right guard, and that's Fletcher Cox. It's no pushover. But you can just see that for whatever reason at center, it's just looks a lot better than what it did at guard. All right, we're going to get another screen pass here, seeing Harlow getting out into the open field. Going to see him actually get onto a block this time. So again, just kind of showing how he moves in space, and in this case, being able to get onto a target. Another nice blitz pickup being the center here, able to slide off and stop that linebacker. All right, again, we're going to get some outside zone action to the right. So what we're going to get is what should be a combination block number 57 here. And we don't get that, but what you do get, again, looking at where this defensive tackle is aligned right now, and watch the movement that they're able to get on him, right? We're starting here, and now they're finishing 2, 3 yards over. Now you'd like to see Harlow be able to climb to that linebacker, but at the same time, sometimes a running back has to be an athlete, and you give a running back all this space. All he's got to do is run there to daylight, and instead, he runs right into the linebacker. Just a quick pass rush rep here, just to show that it's not all sunshine and roses. Pass blocking as a center either, even though it was better than it was as a left guard. All right, so this is something we're not going to see in Miami's offense. This is a quarterback draw. Has some similarities to zone in the sense that these two are going to start double teaming that defensive tackle, and the guard is going to leave for the linebacker. And what Harlow does a good job of doing here is that once his help leaves and that defensive tackle is trying to slide off to make that tackle, he does a good job of just staying connected and running with that defensive tackle and not letting him go to the right to get to the quarterback. Instead, he uses that momentum, gets a little bit of vertical movement, and then gets his hands off the block once the quarterback's in the clear. Now we're getting into that Seattle film, and we're going to see what we looked at earlier with that guard tackle counter. Right, guard and tackle are out, and we're going to see Harlow showing some decent short area quickness to block back on that 4-eye technique. All right, that's going to wrap it up for our film review. As you can see, Sean Harlow is not going to be a roster-changing type player. There is good and bad, and in my opinion, he was a much better center than he was left guard. He's also a guy that brings a little bit of versatility in the sense that he has college experience at tackle. So if he is somebody that's on your roster, then you need a tackle in a pinch, then he can probably fill in a few snaps there, even though he hasn't done that in the NFL yet. In terms of the Dolphins, the way that I see Harlow's contributions is I don't see him part of the 53, but what I do see is somebody who has 5 position versatility that could possibly be brought back later in the season. And by having him in camp now, at least he has some familiarity with the playbook and the scheme, and we're not just pulling a guy off the street like we did with Jonathan Harrison late last year, and he ended up having to play a couple of snaps for us in 2023. But that's where I see Sean Harlow fitting into this roster if it comes to that. As always, thanks for watching. Feel free to leave a comment below. Talk to you guys next week.